I'm not sure what's going on. So if you could see my screen right now, this is the first time I've been able to see that I could bring Scott on camera. And so it is blinking adding on my screen. So I believe, Scott, as you're watching right now, you should have some kind of prompt that's going to ask you to kind of go through the steps and get yourself on here. If it doesn't work out, I do have a plan. We'll go from there. He must have Todd internet speed. Yeah, I think that might be the case because Todd's was pretty magnificent.
That's
Oh,
that's me.
we did it! I'm so excited. I was getting worried there for a minute, so we made it.
Well, I was wondering if it was my iPad that was causing this grief and not something else. But after I just put all my stuff away.
So, well, I have to say I'm really glad that we got through. I've been so excited since you said yes to come on the show. Your builds are out of this world cool, and I know that everybody who's already tuned in right now and people who are going to watch it afterwards are want to hear what you have to say because your abilities are out of this world. So I cannot wait to ask some questions.
I appreciate that. Thanks for waiting, who's ever still on. But trying to figure out why it wouldn't come on my iPad. I wonder if that was the whole blockage. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I really am not sure. I don't know what's going on. But all right, so now that you're here, we're gonna just begin this thing and cut right into it. And usually my first thing is that I ask like to just tell us a little bit about yourself. It's pretty open.
Me, I'm basically an old hot rodder that got away from building hot rods a while ago. Once my girls started college, so I picked up the next best thing, which was scale builds. It allowed me to use the influence I got through some restorations and building some streetcars into a miniaturized version that is still almost as fulfilling as full-size cars.
That's awesome. That's a cool background for sure. How long have you been in the scale segment of the hobby?
I'm gonna ballpark as far as the scale segment goes. I would say about 6, maybe 7 years.
Okay.
These RCs in general a lot longer.
Mm-hmm. What or who got you into it initially? The whole hobby in general.
I had gotten divorced quite a few years ago, and my younger brother, moved in with me, and he had, I think it was Maya Fox, and that got me started. So I went out and got a Maya Fox as well, a Optima Mid, a few other small RCs at the time for kits, no RTRs, and built them, modified them, and got away from the hobby for a while and got back in a few other times.
All right. So you answered my next question, which was perfect segue. And then if you weren't in RC, what would you probably be doing for your hobby of choice?
I would be restoring cars.
All right.
1-to-1.
That's awesome.
Yep.
So my next question would be kind of a standard question. Do you like big tires or small tires? More in like the competition-minded aspect, but...
Well, the few comps I've been in, I appreciate 155s and 1.9s the best.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more challenging, the smaller diameter tire. I do like that larger or better than the 2.2s and others.
Mm-hmm. Do you prefer brushed or brushless motors?
I like the power that's available in both. I appreciate the greater realm of selectivity in the KV that you can get with a brushed or brushless motor that opens you up to be able to move your heavier builds in a different way than I think brushed can.
All right. What do you like most about RC?
I like in RC if you build it right, and it's rewarding in that it can react. A build can react just like a full-size car. The articulation, the suspension movement, the steering, the amount of steering, caster, camber you can dial into these things. I think it's just a blast watching them perform after you build one.
Awesome. You said that you've competed in a couple of scale comps. What one was your favorite that you've ever been to?
The one I've been to where I had the most fun yet on a short-term basis, because I DNF'd, was I've been to K&K twice now, the Top Truck
Hmm.
Challenge. That's a blast as far as the turnout, the people, the quality of builds, the seriousness of those that get into that really know what they're doing when it comes to building a comp rig, where I don't. For me, I built a comp rig based on a China Jeep, a China JK, and a GCM skeleton chassis with some select parts that got me into being competitive, but not anywhere near as competitive as some of these other
Hmm.
guys. I do it for
I
fun.
hear you there for sure. What was your first styrene build?
First styrene build was a Jeep FC70, 58 Jeep FC70. Actually, I saw it at an online auction. There was one for sale that the minute I saw it, I thought, number one, it's awesome. Number two, it's square. So it's got to be something good to start with. So I went with it.
I love that you brought up that it's square. So one of the best pieces of advice that I ever saw when I started building bodies and doing stuff like that was to build boxes and then kind of go from there. What would you say about that?
I would say if you're going to start, I think as you well know, you may start with something square, but it's going to escalate from there
Oh
very
yeah.
quickly. Because the challenge is that, well, cool, I did the box, rounding, wasn't too bad. Now I know what to do if I want to get a more radiused corner or a more sweeping roof line. So the transition, I think, yeah, if you want to get started in this, build a box. I don't care if it's a trailer, a toolbox, a body that's square, whatever you want to do. Then work into your contours after that.
Nice. I like that advice a lot. Uh, how many trucks would you say you have built, or vehicles, cars? Because I know you kind of are all over the map. If it's scale, you're building it. How many up until this point?
Right here, I've got about 20
Wow.
behind me. I think I've done 25, maybe 30 custom
Hmm.
builds. Not as many as a Sean Saley, that's for sure. I'm at a factory. He's crazy awesome builder and very very cool in what he
Hmm.
does. But I've only done about 25 or 30. Um, it's not including how many RCs I've owned, but yeah, over the years, and I've already done this for about 6 or 7 years so far, as far as scratch
Hmm.
building.
Okay. What if you were starting over again, starting at the beginning, and well, I guess now with your knowledge, if you were starting out, what are the first tools you would pick up and grab because they're the necessities, the absolute ones that you need?
Well, if you're just getting into this hobby for the first time, you're going to wind up asking those questions from the people that hopefully give you the best knowledge. And for me, you can't live in this hobby without a Dremel with a series or assortment of barrels, small, large, and different grits. You got to have a good metal straight edge. Um, I usually use a utility knife when it comes to cutting and scoring my styrene,
Hmm.
and a couple good X-Acto knives. So you got to have a hobby grade knife, a good straight edge, um, and a couple power tools. Sean Saley turned me on to an electric file, half-inch wide electric sander, which is pretty cool. Just getting the hang of that. That's you can get away from you, so take some practice.
Yeah, I talked to him at East Coast about that exact same tool, and I'm loving it. It's so nice compared to some of the other stuff I've used.
Yeah, I'm surprised he doesn't carry like a dozen with him and sell them as he
I
goes.
know, right? He's definitely selling them, whether he's got them with
Right.
him or not. So, uh,
Yeah. I call him Black and Hammer when I see him. Black. Right.
what are your favorite glues? So, as you're doing this, you found things that work here and there. Like, what do you prefer to use?
I was using 10X7R for a while, and it became hard to get here locally. We have a really awesome hobby shop close to us here. It's called Nankin
Hmm.
Hobbies, and Nankin has all kinds of stuff. And for a while, um, they didn't have the 10X. They had a lot of the Plastruck stuff, which I was using. And Brian Amita from Exclusive RC turned me on to what's called Same Stuff.
Hmm.
And I will not use anything other than Same Stuff going forward. I usually buy 4 or 5 bottles at a time from Micro Mark. It outperforms. It's very similar to 10X7R, and it bonds quicker than Plastruct or Bondine.
Hmm.
Um, it's safer than Mech. if you're going to use it
Mm-hmm.
regularly. Mech is awesome if you want to make some mech
Mm-hmm.
soup for your filler, but I don't suggest it long term as a primary bonding agent.
All right. So great advice again. Thank you very much. What materials do you need when you start a build? Like what kind of stuff do you go out, grab, put in a pile, and say this is what I'm going to start with?
Well, for me, I have to, I may be jumping ahead, but you got to have whatever your inspiration is, you got to have what I try to do is a full scale printout of your build. I will scale that to the wheelbase I want before I actually scale it to 1/10, 1/9, 1/8, or whatever. But I make sure I have the drawing first. Materials wise, you're going to have some styrene on hand and the regular tools that you've already amassed, prior to getting
Mm-hmm.
into this.
Okay.
Or sketch. I mean, if you're good enough to draw, just do a sketch. I do that
Mm-hmm.
too.
How do you find a truck to build, like, or a car, or whatever it is that you're building? Because I know you've built all kinds of cool stuff, but where does your inspiration come from?
Impulse. I get a couple alerts daily from a site called Bring a Trailer,
Okay.
um, and it will usually post very unique vehicles for sale from across the country. And usually, I'll be just scanning through that, and something will grab my attention, and immediately I got to build it or see if I can build it
Mm-hmm.
first. The test is I ask myself if I think I can build it, and I'll jump in. Sometimes I don't do a great job. Sometimes I do, but it's the impulse. You see something, you go, "Wow, holy crap! I gotta see if I can do that."
Yeah, I definitely know what you're talking about. Uh, I saw that you posted a little while ago in a couple of different groups a tutorial about how you take the clod bodies and you add to them and you morph them into a Dodge pickup or of the sort. Do you usually start with the base body and go from there, or do you usually start 100% from scratch? Like, what's your preference?
Um, I am probably 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
What you see up there on the shelf, the Falcon, the Nova, those are scratch. The top shelf is scratch. The 55 Ford, um, the Terraplane was scratch. A lot of what I do is, again, based on impulse, Adam. If I see it, like the Blazer, the pre-runner Blazer I did, I knew I'd have a more rigid build if I used a RC four-wheel drive body as the frame of the
Mm-hmm.
build and add the flares and went on from there. So if I know I'm going to abuse something, I will probably try to start with a hard body first and then add on to it, with the exception of the Trophy Rat, which is just all scratch
Mm-hmm.
build. So far, that's taken a beating except for hard lesson learned in scratch building chassis, which is if you are going to beat it, don't use brake line.
I learned that one early on too, so
Right.
um,
So
did some repairs here and there.
that went on a miniature frame rack about it.
When you do your builds, do you use precise measurements or do you do a lot of eyeballing it?
I will do 80% precise, 20% eyeball. That may change sometimes, but um, if I'm doing a build for myself, I don't mind
Mm-hmm.
eyeballing. If I'm doing something commissioned, I will scale it as close to exact as I can. I just don't want the ramifications of, something looking out of proportion because I cut a corner and made it a quarter-inch shorter or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But all the stuff that I've done, the Ram Charger conversion, everything was transferring maybe an eyeball appearance to the actual build and making sure I double check it against photos for accuracy.
Mm-hmm. All right. I definitely use photos and the eyeballing technique a lot. And I know when I talked to Donnie, he said, measure everything. And so
Yeah.
I've tried to get a little more in that direction, but I definitely see where it's beneficial. All right. What is one thing that you will never ever leave off of a scale build? Like that one detail that has to be there.
For me, because my builds are kind of always so diverse. For me, it's the finite details, something that is is hard to replicate from over-the-counter stuff, like accessories and fine details, like all the cool stuff you get from exclusive RC, for instance. I use a blend of that. There's almost always that kind of goodies on my stuff. Or if I can't get it quick enough or fast enough or exactly what I want, I make it. So it's the finite details. I'm not crazy like Blazer because he's Mr.
Yeah.
Intense. Uh, the brake lines he put, he's never getting that truck dirty, by the way. I hope he's watching. That silver Chevy he just did, I guarantee you, none of us, unless it's fake dirt, will ever see dirt on it.
It's gonna sit on that rollback and just sit there and look pretty.
It's sit on the rollback, exactly.
You've panned the camera and looked at some trucks, and I saw the trophy rat, and so it has a pretty interesting and cool story behind it. So for those people who are being introduced to you and maybe don't know this story, do you care to share the story about the trophy rat?
Yeah, the trophy rat was something that was on my mind after seeing it. I randomly came across this truck just surfing Google for whatever reason. I came across this. I was looking at pre-runner builds, and I wanted to do another pre-runner, and I had seen the trophy rat. I started reading about it, and Keith Northrup, and how he did it, and what was his motivation, and the shell of an international pickup he had that he built a chassis around it is what he did. So I was at K&K last year and talking to Matt Lass, and come to find out we were looking at a couple tables with some used stuff for sale on them, and we are talking about things we want to build next. And I told him, I said, I've got this trophy rat thing in my mind. He goes, "You're not gonna believe it, so do I." So Matt, I'm not sure if this is the story you wanted, but Matt and I decided, well, let's try to build one in unison and see how these turn out. So he and I built trophy rat versions of our own. They turned out very well, in my opinion. His performance really badass. I love the way this one runs. And then Keith Northrup actually asked to buy mine. I wouldn't let him. I couldn't do it. So, but yeah, I was kind of proud of that. That he liked it that much. And then he got into RC Car Action's Reader's Ride, the last month's version, which I was really, really proud of. I've gotten lucky and gotten to their magazine a couple times. So, but and then Associated brings out their kind of a close version. I mean, the body's a close enough looking replica.
Mm-hmm.
It's on a kind of inexpensive chassis, but I wish they would have done something like Axial did, and at least made a pseudo tube frame under this thing. Would have been much better, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And that is the story I was looking for people who didn't know. I thought it was really unique and cool that the two of you said, hey, I want to build the same thing. And you were like, well, let's do it together and see how cool they turn out. So
it was. And we had fun actually comparing notes, too, along the way. Mm-hmm. I was more advanced in my build, and Matt would make some cute comments like, tell me you did not just put an international emblem on the hood of that truck. I said, yeah, I did. It was great. And I think Dave from the Ankin Hobbies just kind of chimed in here. Associated stole the idea. Matt and I both firmly believe that, yes, they were intrigued by Keith Northrup's build last year, but we're certain they watched the feedback and some of the following that was going on with these two builds. So, Associated, you stole our stuff.
I mean, to me, I'd be like, yes, somebody was watching, and I feel awesome. So, yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying, though, because it very much resembles what you guys did, for sure. You have built a bunch of really cool rigs, and you've like panned the camera over and so on and so forth. Do you have a couple of them that you'd be like willing to, take a close-up view of, show them off a little bit, talk about them briefly? I know people are drooling in the background when you pan over, so.
I got Johnny 5 sitting here that I'm really kind of proud of this thing. I had no idea this was going to turn out as close to the photo as it did. I've got some odds and ends to finish up in here. I've got a servo that actuates the deck lid so I can gain access to the battery quicker. It's got a lot of stuff very close to what the original does. Is sitting on a steel frame that I cut and welded or brazed up like this. The front suspension's all scratch built with a transverse spring. Rear axle is one of those simple Fouye axles that I don't even know how this thing runs yet. As soon as I had this thing wired, it's been snowing ever since. I'm so pissed off. I've yet to get this thing outside. So that's one of the problems with winter builds, I'll tell you. But I'm kind of proud of the Little Red Wagon. That kind of was a blast. But yeah, this is some of the stuff that my addiction kind of takes over and runs with. This is something I saw last year. Chrysler put out a bunch, or FCA put out a bunch of their concept vehicles for Moab 2017. And the Quicksand came out along with a few others like the CJ66 and a few other builds. So this thing was conceived from the notion of, holy crap, I really like that, and how do I build it from scratch?
Yeah.
So that's a China JK that got all cut up that wound up being sacrificed for that build.
Yeah, those are awesome, and those are, you like hit all of my favorite ones for sure. So I've been following for a while, and the Johnny 5 one, like as soon as you started, my jaw hit the floor, and every post, man, I've been watching every one of them along the way. They're so awesome. So,
you know, that one, I have to admit, that one is all eyeballed. There's no dimensions anywhere for that. And when I had the pile of cut up VW Samba bus sitting on the desk, I'm going, I have no idea how this is going back together. So that one's all eyeball.
Yeah, I totally believe it. Who are your influences in the scale crawling segment of the hobby? And if you were going to pick someone to say, hey, put this person on the show, who would you pick?
Let's see. I don't know if we'll have to get Blazer some kind of mask if he comes on, because he won't allow himself to be seen in public. And he's got some killer skills. I mean, the rollback is just amazing to watch in action. Sean Saley is another guy. I mean, there's so many out there. You've had Donnie on and Joe. They got some mad skills too. Brian Almeida, if you haven't seen some of the stuff he's done, it'll blow you away. Completely. Guy is super talented. He should almost go into business and sell RC stuff.
Yeah, funny. It's like that'd be a good idea or something.
Watching.
So what is your favorite build out there that isn't yours? This is the hardest question ever. Nobody can answer this one, so I'm really curious.
You know what? I'm telling you, there are builds out there that you see by other super talented guys, and you tell yourself, holy shit, you are never going to make it to that level. And there's so many of them. I mean, it would be unfair to single out a single build. I mean, we've all seen the ones that I won't mention, where we walk up to them and go, you got to be kidding me. You know, the functionality, the look, the realism. For me, it's the realism. It's got to hit you as being something that looks so real, or such a close copy of the real one-to-one that it actually completely impresses you. And there's a bunch out there. I just can't I can't choose one. There's so many. I mean, Brian has one that is a scale build of a dump truck. It's like a gravel pit dump truck. So it's the scale of it is huge to begin with, and its true scale is just massive. And there's Blazer's rollback. I mean, you see that thing working, and you're just in awe.
Yeah, that one's crazy. I saw that at East Coast, and so I didn't see like Brian's truck at East Coast, but I saw Blazer's rollback, and it is huge. Like, it is gigantic. You totally don't realize that in pictures, but it is humongous. So just the size of it is so overwhelmingly impressive. It's crazy. So next question. How do you plan a build from the very inception, the beginning, until it is completed?
Well, I will do one of two things. If it's a completely scratch build, I will build the body before I build the chassis. Therefore, it's easier for me to actually, I don't want to build a chassis. How do I word this? I like building a chassis under a body. It just seems like I got the body's proportions exactly where I want them versus me building a chassis. Now I got to tweak the body to fit it.
Mm-hmm.
So I prefer building the body first.
Makes sense. In the few that I've done, I haven't done very many, but in the few that I've done, that's usually the route that I've gone because it's easier to manipulate those pieces than it is the whole truck as a whole. So sorry, I lost my place on my paper. Do you operate on a budget when you do your builds, or is it more like it gets what it needs to make it look good?
I don't like cutting corners and jeopardizing the outcome of a build because I'm trying to stay on a budget. So I will try to take my time with the build if it's a matter of funds or whatever, but I won't scrimp on my vision of what the outcome needs to be. I will do what it takes to build it my way.
Awesome.
Without worrying about that. If that's a fair enough.
Yeah, I think that's kind of been the common thread when I've asked people that question is that you go into it and you enter into it knowing that you're going to spend some money and it gets what it needs. For me, it's within reason, but for other people, it gets what it needs. So,
yeah, when you think about a scratch build, just the term itself, scratch build, I don't know if you can actually say that and have budget in the same sentence.
I really don't think so because you don't know. Once you start building, I have no idea how much some of the stuff that I have cost. I've tried things and they didn't work, and I've started over, and I don't even know how you add all of that up. So right. I definitely get what you're saying there. Next question would be, people are kind of migrating to Facebook for all of the RC stuff now, but is your preference the forums or is the preference Facebook, and why so?
Well, I really like Scale Builders Guild. I really like the quality of the builders there. There's an international reach on that forum. That's pretty cool. The owners of Scale Builders Guild are pretty cool dudes. I really, really like Facebook because of the reach and realm and variation of groups that you can be associated with. Different builds can be dedicated to different groups. So even though I might have 15 or 20 different groups that I'll post in every now and then, they're not all the same. There's some dedicated to monster trucks, pre-runners, trophy trucks. Facebook is just a blast because of the wide variety of groups you can play around in.
Yeah, that I hear you completely there. And so from what you're saying, I can make the leap to say that Facebook says, like, you can talk to a ton of people. And I know you can't see my arms, so I'm talking with my hands, but forum says you talk to the forum members. So
exactly.
Forums are cool for all the details. Facebook's cool for all the pictures and getting your stuff out there.
Yeah, I also think some of the responses you get on Facebook are, how do I word this without pissing off the forum guys? There's a lot of times you'll see where guys on the forum are checking out your builds but never commenting. Where on Facebook it seems like you get comments, much more feedback, constructive criticism, that kind of stuff on the Facebook stuff. So I like it better.
Yeah. All right. What is your best piece of advice for a scale newbie? So, like, someone who says they're just scrolling along and they just happen to see the trophy wrap build that you did, and then they're like, oh, well, I want to do this, and I'm going to build myself a truck, or I'm going to find this truck. What advice do you give? The very first piece.
Start small. Start small. Reel in your wishes and your dreams to until you practice enough. And the last thing you want to do is start something, get discouraged, and never finish it. So my advice is, if you're looking around, you're seeing some super awesome stuff that you want to build, and you're going to give it a shot. You really need to test yourself first. Is that within your realm of constructability? Do you know what it's going to take? Have you asked the questions? Did you do the research? Do you have inspiration photos? Did you do any pre-measurements? Um, you know, are the materials readily available? Do you have to start ordering all this stuff? Or do you have a cool hobby shop like Nankin Hobbies, Dave?
I love it. Uh, where do you see the scale building community heading in the coming years?
Well, I think I'm going to answer something that you and a few other people on here watching probably already can agree on. It's growing. It's already been. It's let me reword this. My fear in what I'm about to say is that the scratch building or scale building industry can only grow. Some of the 3D bodies that are out there are may interfere in some of the scratch building going forward, but I think scale building, staying scale, like if you follow some of the philosophies of like Mike Lohman, you need, if you're going to build scale, build at scale. Add those details that make it a true scale build. Like Joe Garlick's under hood Jeep shots.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty darn cool.
Mm-hmm.
Who does a fuse block? Only Joe. who puts who puts brains, a small computer under the hood of his Jeep? Joe. Right, that's his trademark. Does cool like that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's the scale stuff is can only get better.
All right. Yeah, I think with the
to that point, by the way, it takes all of us out there to keep nurturing that growth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the community being positive and supportive and welcoming in new people and answering the questions. And so that was one of the things that I disliked about the forums, was that I'd ask a question and they'd be like, you know how to search. Well,
I've seen that.
yes, I know how to search, but really I just wanted an answer from you. I didn't want to go read all of it, and so I genuinely make it a mission to try to respond to some of those. I can't hit them all, and none of us should be expected to hit them all, but that's one of the things that throughout this whole time, like that was one of the things that was off-putting at first for me, and I've always tried to answer some of those questions along the way. So sorry, that's enough about me,
Mm-hmm.
but do you currently have any sponsors, and if so, why have you chosen those companies?
I haven't chosen any sponsors. I've been really fortunate. I had Brian from Exclusive RC, approach me on being a team driver, and that's been a blast. I mean, I know that as busy as he is, he needs to foster his business and put his parts and materials and awesome accessories out there.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's who I'm associated with so far is Exclusive RC only.
All right. That's awesome. And so I like one of the things you said. I like what you said there was that I don't have any that I've chosen. I have one that has chosen me. And so I uniquely get to sit in that same situation. I have a couple more because I'm more centered in the crawling community, and some of them are my friends. But I think that if you're going to be positive and do what you are supposed to do for your sponsor, like promote them and be a good member of the community, that people will come to you, and it's not necessarily about seeking them out. So I don't know, that's how I feel. But so my last and final question for you is, what should we expect to see from you next in the future?
For some reason, I have this inrush of ideas that I want to try to build. I don't know for sure. I do have this started. This is the photo I showed earlier of the
Mm-hmm.
Bronco. This is I started the sides about a month or two ago, and got about this far. And I need to get back to this, but this is something. This may either wind up being a drag Bronco, something nice and low, with tires, or it may be a crawler. I'm not sure, but I'm leaning towards a drag truck on that one.
Cool.
Otherwise, I'm trying to get to actually enjoy some of the stuff I've built. I've got 2 here I barely used, and almost 3 pretty soon once the monster truck gets energized. So I'm going to do a drag truck. I've got something along the lines of the J5 that is pretty cool visually, It's based on a '57 Chevy, and it could wind up being as cool as that. I hope, if it turns out the way my vision sees it.
Awesome. So I do have a different additional question. Someone had asked, like, do you drive your trucks or do they sit on the shelf and look pretty? Uh,
There we, there we go. No, I try to use everything. I do have a couple that I'm fearful of ruining. The Little Red Wagon, by the way, I had put that on its side twice, and the paint on that truck is candy apple
mhm.
red. So, to answer your question accurately, I've taken the electronics out of that truck because one side I ruined pretty bad, the other side I just nicked up. But I wound up getting the photos that I wanted. I got some real cool wheel stand photos out of it, and I won't drive that one again. I'm scared death of doing it. The Chevy 2 up there
Mhm.
has even a worse mix of candy tangerine and candy red over gold. I won't take a chance of hurting that one. So that one probably is going to stay there for an awful long time. I got a couple of videos of it. At least I know it works and
Mhm.
runs. But I do like to use the trophy rack gets used. The K5 is going to get used a lot. It's a blast. And the K5 is even more fun than the trophy
Mhm.
rack. And the monster truck, I have no idea how it's going to perform yet. So, but yeah, I drive my stuff. Quicksand won't see anymore. Quicksand's probably going to park there for a while. But it, yeah. But yeah, no, I got a few that I use. Some that I don't.
Yeah. So I've always said that I was never gonna self or shelf sit any of my rigs, and I've done a pretty good job of driving them so far. But as I get more into it, I'm just like every scratch hurts. So I understand where you're at for sure.
See, Michael agrees what he said. He's got a couple that I'm shocked. By the way, Blazer got me. He may be single-handedly between him and James Shelton, the ones that got me into building scale trucks because it was Michael's black and silver Chevy build on the TF2 chassis, I believe, years ago that I
Hmm.
saw that I thought, holy crap. First glance, I thought it was real. So he was a huge influence. Don't tell him I said.
I'm pretty sure he won't hear you. It's all good. Um, so
Right.
at this point, Scott, I just have to say thank you for being on, and I genuinely appreciated our conversation. So one of the cool things is, and most unique parts is, Joe was the first person that I didn't actually like know well outside of my own circle of people I talk to all the time being on, and you're my second. But outside of that, like I talked to Joe for a while before he was on, and you and I have been hit or miss off and on, and that's all good and stuff. But it's really kind of a different feel when I'm sitting here asking you questions because I I don't know any of the answers to your questions, and I'm super curious. So this interview itself made me so much more excited for all of the other ones that are coming because I don't know what anybody's going to say, and it's intriguing and it's puzzling and I feel like I'm sitting watching as opposed to being the person who's asking the questions. So
Well, conversely, this has been fun. It's been more fun than I thought it would. Getting the questions 25 minutes before the show was stressful enough. I appreciate that, Adam. It was well
yeah,
done.
I tried really hard to get them out earlier, but real world problems got in the way and it just didn't happen. So put the pressure on right before the thing goes down. So, but we persevered through the quick questions. We persevered through the multiple problems with the beginning of the show, and we made it through. So, I'd like to thank you for being on. I'd like to thank everybody else for tuning in. And we're going to do more of them. I have a bunch of people lined up. I know that I currently have I'm That Guy, so Matt Kett from Scale Building Guild.
That's
Uh,
that's gonna be a good one,
Yes, I'm
guys.
super excited to talk to
His
him.
his current build is off the hook, badass.
I also have Chris Robinson coming on, and I have a total change of pace. A big name that everybody knows, Brian Parker. Whether you're a big fan of G6 or not, that
Yeah,
is a name that everybody
yeah.
in this hobby knows. And I'm
Everybody wear kilts. Everybody should wear a kilt during that show.
I challenge you all to wear a kilt during that show. Um, and I'm in talks with some other people, and I'm pretty excited about what's coming down the line. So pay attention, join the Facebook group if you're not already on it, and share it up. I'm just happy to share what all these people are doing, and highlight these awesome builders and people in our hobby, because they're doing great things.
Well, thanks for doing this too,
Yeah,
Evan.
absolutely. And thank you for being on. And I'm going to end it right there. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And I will catch you all next time. See you.
Good night, guys.